You know the feeling. The breakup happens, and almost immediately, their social media lights up like a celebration you weren't invited to. New friends, new parties, big smiles. It's like you were a footnote they just erased. And that feeling? It's confusing, and it hurts. But here's the thing you have to understand. The movie they're showing everyone is not the movie they're actually living in.
And that's really the heart of this whole thing, isn't it? What you see is the performance. But the real story, the one that's actually true, that one only plays late at night. You know, around 3 a.m. when the distractions are gone and it's just them and their thoughts. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and take a look at the private movie they never wanted you to see. Okay, so let's use a metaphor. Picture this. You're at an airport and you're watching their plane take off. It's roaring down the runway, it's powerful, it's fast, and as you watch it climb into the sky, you just think, well, that's it. They're gone. They're not looking back. From where you're standing, it looks so final.
But here's the part you can't see from the ground, right? You don't see the turbulence hitting them at 30,000 feet. You don't see the pilot fighting against the wind or the warning lights flashing in the cockpit that just might make them turn that whole plane around. Their departure looks so strong. But what you don't know yet is that there's a struggle happening up there in the clouds.
So that brings us to the very first stage of this whole thing. I call it the indifference performance. It's this act they put on, this big show of I don't care. They build this wall to convince you, and honestly to convince themselves, that they're totally fine. But you're about to see just how fragile that wall really is. And you have to remember this because it's so important. Right after a breakup, their ego is the one driving the car. It's loud, it's cocky, and it's flooring it, yelling, "We're free, we're better off." Meanwhile, regret is just sitting quietly in the back seat. But trust me, it's a passenger that always ends up asking to take the wheel. And this is exactly where you see that split we were talking about. What you get to see is the highlight reel, right? The happy posts, the new faces, them shouting from the rooftops how great they're doing. But the 3 a.m. reality? That's a whole different story. That's where the private regret lives. That's the inner conflict, the exhaustion from losing silent arguments with the memory of you over and over again. Think of their I don't care attitude like a big pane of glass. From your side, it looks like a solid, unbreakable wall. But on their side, hairline cracks are starting to form. They're starting from the inside. And every quiet moment, every memory of you adds another little bit of pressure. It looks perfect, right up until the moment it isn't. Here's another way to think about it. When they walk away, they're carrying this backpack that feels, super light. It's filled with this feeling of freedom. But every single time they remember you being kind, or how you supported them, or how you actually listened, it's like a small stone gets dropped into that backpack. At first, they don't even notice it. But the days and weeks go on, and the weight of what they really lost starts to get heavy. Undeniably heavy. And just before we move on to the next part, I want you to just sit with this thought for a second. Really let it sink in. This isn't about being arrogant. It's the simple truth that their ego is fighting so hard to deny right now. You were never easy to replace. Okay, so what happens next? Well, to avoid feeling the weight of all those stones in their backpack, they do something very predictable. They run straight into chaos. They literally trade the calm, steady presence you gave them for just noise. Constant noise and distraction. But that kind of strategy, it has a very short shelf life. And that's the thing about running to chaos, isn't it? It feels like freedom at first. All the new people, the late nights, the constant stimulation, it's exciting. But the excitement is temporary. Because sooner or later, they find themselves all alone at 2 in the morning, and they realize the loudest room they're in is still completely empty. Noise just doesn't equal connection. This whole journey through chaos, it's kind of like being a kid in a candy store. First, you get that sugar rush. That's the excitement of all the new attention, new faces, new everything. It's a thrill. But what comes after the sugar rush? The crash. And that's when the high is gone and they're just left feeling kind of empty, maybe even a little sick. And that's the exact moment they start craving something with substance. They start remembering the feeling of that calm, grounding presence they had with you. And ever so slowly, the memory of your calm, it actually starts to haunt them. It'll be in little moments, like they'll be in the middle of some shallow conversation and suddenly remember how deeply you and them could talk. Or they'll be surrounded by a crowd of people and feel completely and utterly alone. And that's when they learn the really hard lesson, that being entertained is not the same thing as being understood. And this is the thought I want you to hold on to. Your peace, your calm, your depth, it wasn't boring, it was rare. And believe me, the more time they spend splashing around in the shallow end of chaos, the more they're going to realize just how valuable the deep water they left behind really was. All right, so once the chaos starts to feel old and that whole I don't care act starts to crack, something really interesting happens. The power dynamic shifts completely, and it's all because of one thing you do, your silence. This is the moment your absence stops being a vulnerability and becomes a mirror that they can't look away from.
Now, this is a really crucial point. In the past, when they did something that got a reaction from you, right? Anger, sadness, questions, you were the audience for their drama. But when you go silent, you're not trying to punish them. You're simply canceling the show. You're turning off the spotlight, and now they're left all alone on that stage, forced to look at their own actions. And you can literally watch their thinking change over time. On day one, it's all ego. Ah, they're just being dramatic. They'll text me. They always come back. Then a few weeks go by, and that confidence starts to wobble. It becomes, why haven't they reached out? And then a month or two later, that uncertainty morphs into a quiet, terrifying question. Oh my God, did I make a huge mistake?
And let's be real for a second, this is not easy to do. Choosing to be silent when every part of your brain is screaming at you to just reach out, to explain yourself, it's one of the hardest things. It's a superpower, for sure, but it's one that feels really strange and uncomfortable long before it ever starts to feel strong.
And eventually, this becomes your new truth. Your silence isn't a game. It's not about being petty. It is you finally choosing your own peace over their performance. It's a boundary. It's you saying, I am no longer available for this drama.
And that leads us to the final and honestly the most important piece of this whole puzzle. The real reason they feel that pull to come back. It has way less to do with their regret than it has to do with your transformation. This is what we call the energy upgrade.
So think about it. Before and right after the breakup, this is what your energy probably looked like. A huge chunk, maybe 80%, of your mental and emotional battery was spent on them, thinking about them, checking their social media, replaying things in your head. You were being drained, with almost nothing left over for you. But as you start to heal, as you embrace that silence, something amazing starts to happen. You unplug that energy cord from them, and you start pouring all of that power back into yourself, your goals, your health, your peace. You're no longer orbiting them. You are becoming the sun in your own universe. And you have to believe me when I say they feel that shift. They feel it from miles away.
And this, right here, is the key. The thing that actually pulls them back isn't some trick or some perfectly timed photo. It's the undeniable, energetic truth that you are growing, you are glowing, and you are thriving without them. Your self-respect becomes magnetic. And so that brings us to the final and most powerful question of all. As you keep building this new version of yourself, the goal changes. It's no longer about whether they'll come back. The real question is, if and when they do return, will this stronger, more peaceful, self-aware version of you even want them anymore? And that choice, having that choice, that's the real win.